Hi guys, sorry for the delay. We had some technical difficulties. I was gonna be filming this outside and a storm is rolling in. Then I came inside and it said my connection's not very strong, maybe because of the weather, so we'll see. But I am here, I am live, I am enjoying a Starbucks pink drink, which I had to go pick up on my way to film. It usually has strawberries in it. They were out of them, so I opted for blackberries, and it's still very yummy. It's a little healthier option. It tastes sort of like a Frappuccino, but it's much healthier for you, less calories at least. It's made with coconut milk. So as a lot of you know, arthritic conditions and inflammatory conditions can be triggered by dairy and cow's milk. So coconut milk, like what's in the pink drink, is a great alternative. And it tastes really good too. So that's my primary reason for getting it. I'm gonna wait for some of you to hop on so that I can answer any questions that you might have or discuss, whatever it is that you may want to discuss. So I will just wait a few minutes here. We had some nice conversation in the previous live chat that I did last week. We kind of discussed sort of the ins and outs of chronic illness and what you can do to kind of cope and maintain and sometimes that's easier said than done. So it's great to have, the internet and social media as a way to kind of connect with other people who are dealing with the same types of issues as we are. So what's nice about chats like this is you can ask questions or leave comments live, and I can see them live and answer them in real time. So if any of you have any questions or concerns or issues that you'd like to address today, I'm here. I do have 3 dogs and 2 cats, so if you hear or see animals, that's why. They even have their own hashtag on Instagram called #ShuckZoo. So if you ever want to check out their shenanigans and their cuteness, they are here for you. Excuse my hair. It's like a lion's mane today. I haven't washed it yet. It's been one of those days. I've already had a doctor's appointment and some errands, so it will get washed eventually. Just hasn't yet. Decided to keep it real for you all. I am wearing a shirt by the ever popular LuLaRoe. I don't sell LuLaRoe, but I do enjoy it, and I highly recommend it for people with arthritis because none of their shirts or pants, leggings, or skirts have buttons or zippers or anything that would be difficult for a person with RA to wear. It's very comfortable. It's comfortable on the skin, and it's pretty flattering no matter what your body type is. So that's the pattern. Some of the patterns are kind of crazy, but from a comfort standpoint, LuLaRoe is incredibly comfortable. It's so easy that it was almost crafted for people with RA or other disabilities, even though that wasn't their intention. It is a great benefit to it. So it's pretty easy to find a LuLaRoe consultant. Just look anywhere on Facebook. It is something that I think a lot of my fellow RAers and anyone with chronic pain may enjoy due to the comfort levels. So, still waiting for my first question here. This is going to be a very short live chat if no one participates. I guess while I am waiting for the first comment or question, I guess I can talk about something that's been in the news recently. Hold on one second. Just adjusting my curtain there so I have some better lighting for you all. I guess something that I will discuss is something that's been on my Facebook page recently that's a little controversial, and that is the issue of the singer Prince and his death. Now, I'm not sure. I think I saw somewhere on social media today that today is actually Prince Day or Prince's birthday. I'm not sure if they're referring to the singer. I assume so. at any rate, it recently came out that Prince's passing was due to an opioid overdose. So for those of you who don't know, you know, it came out that Prince had overdosed on painkillers, and that is the cause of death. Now, the reason this is a controversial topic is, you know, there's a lot of media reports that are kind of making light of it or giving him a pass because he's a celebrity. And at the same time, there's people who are disability advocates and chronic pain sufferers who are saying the real issue here is that, you know, Prince had chronic pain, and that's what led him to abuse these opioids, and that's what led to his eventual death. Now, to me, it doesn't really matter. Sorry, we might have to take a little pause because of my dog. In case you guys want to see him, I have 3 of them, but there's one of them. Wait, where is he? That's Brutus. He is a lot less scary than he sounds. He's a big baby. And I got this one down here. That's Pip. Hi, Pip. And then there's Maggie. She's my little pug. Anyway, hopefully they will let me continue talking. Basically, what I was saying is that the issue of not just Prince, but of opioids in general is a highly divisive and controversial topic in the chronic pain community. To me, it's a double-edged sword. What I mean is that there are a ton of people who legitimately need these drugs, who legitimately need access to these drugs, who depend on them, for whom they are life-changing. The unfortunate part is that people that abuse them, misuse them, or use them recreationally make it harder for those who actually depend on them to get them. So these people that abuse or misuse them are limiting access to people who actually need those types of medications. And they're also creating a stigma. People who are abusing opioids and narcotics are, you know, in a sense, creating a negative stigma for those who have chronic pain and need painkillers. But then, you know, I look at the flip side of it too, which is that, well, maybe just not the flip side, but another angle of it. And that is that, you know, a lot of people who do end up becoming addicted to opioids and narcotics started off using them legitimately. So what I mean is there are people that actually had chronic or acute pain who physiologically became addicted. They biologically became addicted. It wasn't a choice. It had nothing to do with willpower or mental or emotional grit or stamina or any kind of choice. Their bodies just became physically addicted to them. And because these types of drugs are highly addictive, that is what can happen. So, you know, it's sad because there are people who use them recreationally, but a lot of the people who become addicted or who overdose on these types of drugs are people who started off needing them legitimately and using them responsibly, but got to a point where their bodies were very dependent on them and they built up a tolerance and they needed more and more and more. That's why I personally am not completely against regulations when it comes to dispensing opioids and narcotics. I know I'm going to get a ton of backlash for that. Trust me, I've had the debate many times before. I've had this discussion many times before. But I think as long as they're being prescribed properly, and doctors aren't doling them out like candy, and patients who need them are using them properly, that regulation wouldn't necessarily be a hard thing. There needs to be some kind of discernment in place for who gets opioids and narcotics, why they're getting them, how they're using them. It may cause a little bit more hassle for chronic pain sufferers. There may be a little bit more red tape or hoops we have to jump through. But if it's making it safer for our community and for people who need the drugs for other reasons, then why, I guess I don't understand why people are against stricter laws and regulations. Because the truth is, opioids should pretty much be a last line of defense in managing these conditions, a last resort option. They shouldn't be a first go-to option. I mean, I would say that if you're going into a rheumatologist and, you know, at your first appointment, they're trying to give you very highly addictive pain medications, then they're probably not thinking of the bigger picture and trying to get to the root problem, which is the inflammation. You need to get the disease under control and then manage pain. So, I mean, yes, there is certainly a time and a place for opioids and narcotics and other pain pills. And I do believe that many of us need them. I'm not against them. I've used them before myself. All I'm saying is that I don't mind regulations being in place so that they're not falling into the hands of the wrong people, so that they're being used properly as a last resort, and so that patients who are using them are educated on the risks. I don't know that a lot of people who start on these types of drugs realize the risks involved, and those risks are pretty much the addictive nature of them. It's scary. It's scary. And it also, it does make me really mad that people choose to do drugs illegally or misuse prescription drugs, because I think that it does make it harder for people who actually need them and depend on them. And I never really understand why people do things. I never really understand why people do things to their bodies that, you know, are causing themselves harm. So when I see people abusing drugs, it rubs me the wrong way, because they're making a choice, however conscious or not, to destroy their health. And there's those of us, thousands, millions of us, who would give anything to be healthy and pain-free. And people who are misusing these medications are making it a little harder for us and creating a stigma for us. So, you know, it's certainly one of those issues where I 100% see both sides. I don't want it to be harder for people that need these drugs to get them, but I do want people to be aware of the risks associated with them, and I want people to use them properly and only as needed. And I would hope that the media someday would be a little bit more sensitive when they're discussing addicts and addict behavior in the realm of painkillers and drugs like this, because with someone like Prince, we don't know, you know, the reason why he started taking them in the first place. He could have been greatly suffering, and we don't want to sugarcoat that, you know, he was an addict. That was apparent. He was going to be seeking help for his addiction in the days to come, and then, you know, he died and he didn't get that chance. But we don't want to sugarcoat his situation. He, you know, he overdosed. He maybe misused these drugs. We don't know. We don't want to assume that he was using them recreationally. But we don't want to sugarcoat it or make excuses because he was a celebrity either. But I guess all I'm saying is we should be empathetic regardless. Because if he was using them recreationally, obviously he was hurting in other ways. And if he was actually dependent upon them, then we should be empathetic to the fact that he was in such pain, that he went to such great lengths to manage it. And I guess if it seems like I'm talking in circles or playing both sides of this, it's because I don't have a firm stance on either side. I've taken these drugs. I'm not a fan of these drugs, but I've had to resort to them before. At the same time, I've seen people either lose their lives or destroy their lives because of opioid addiction. So, you know, I kind of do see both sides of it. And I'm all for making these drugs available to people that need them, but I'm also all for regulating them so that they're being dispensed safely and properly and used safely and properly. And I hate to see any stigma around chronic pain patients. But the fact of the matter is there's a lot of people who are misusing and abusing these drugs, and it's a really touchy subject, and I totally get that. So I see that I have a comment. Michael Hubert said, I use them properly, but it does become a hassle for someone like myself. And I've had the anti-inflammatory, and I agree. The wrong people get their hands on them and abuse them. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Michael. It's just a really touchy topic. There's never going to be a way to fully prevent the wrong people from getting their hands on these drugs. But I think the doctors can do a better job of maybe educating and explaining the risks of them to patients with pain. Because sadly what happens is a lot of people, as I mentioned earlier, start on narcotics and opioids for the right reasons. They need them. They rely on them. They need to manage their pain. They're in desperate amounts of pain that most people couldn't fathom. We understand because we all live with this level of pain, but a lot of people don't get it. So these people are desperate. They're desperate for relief and maybe a quick fix. So, too many doctors dole these meds out like candy, thus creating this addiction that can become potentially dangerous. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't think it's something that a lawmaker is going to decide or figure out. But I think the medical community kind of has to step up and accept some accountability when it comes to the prescription and the over-prescription of opioids. I don't want to make it harder for anybody, especially those of us living with chronic conditions. But to me, there's no harm in trying to make it safer. But it is a hassle all the way around. I mean, I can tell a story that happened to me maybe 2 or 3 months ago. Some of you may have read about it. I was in excruciating pain and I couldn't walk. I could barely walk. It was lower back pain extending into my legs. And I went into my rheumatologist's room crying my eyes out, which people that know me know that I cry about a lot of stuff. I'm a sensitive person, so I will cry at like a Hallmark commercial or the ASPCA ads, or someone will send me a sweet comment or a sweet card and I'll cry. But I don't usually cry about pain or cry about my conditions. So I think my rheumatologist was very concerned and kind of caught off guard that after 22 years, he saw me crying, and I never cry in his office. So he wrote me a script for a fentanyl patch. For those of you who don't know, fentanyl is highly, highly, highly addictive. It is typically reserved for a hospital setting or even an end-of-life situation, like when someone's on hospice or after a terrible accident. It's not typically given for chronic pain. It is sometimes, but it's not like a usual first go-to option. At any rate, I've never taken this before, and so I have to admit I didn't know a lot about it. I went to the pharmacy to get it filled, and they said, okay, it'll be a couple hours, come back, whatever. So I spent a couple hours killing time out, near where the pharmacy was. I'm in excruciating pain. I was debating going to the emergency room. In hindsight, I wish I would have. I get to the pharmacy and they're like, yeah, what do you need this for again? They gave me a million questions. They asked me a million questions, and I kind of got an attitude, which is also unlike me, but I was very frustrated because I was in this excruciating level of pain. I had been debating going to the hospital all day, and they're treating me like an addict based on nothing. I thought because I don't look sick, whatever, that they just were thinking I was a drug seeker, and so they were treating me like a drug seeker. I live in Western Pennsylvania. I live in Pittsburgh, which is a wonderful city, and we're always renowned for all these wonderful things, but we're also one of the top one of the areas with the highest rates of opioid abuse and opioid overdose and death from opioids. A lot of people start off on pain medications and then proceed to or progress to heroin use, which is really sad and scary. So it is a very unfortunate epidemic in this area. So, I understand them being a little overly cautious, but I was still upset because here I am, spent all this time wasted trying to get this fentanyl prescription filled, and then I leave with no prescription because they refused to fill it for me. And I was mad. I was so mad that I was being treated like an addict and a drug seeker. And, at this point, my doctor's office was closed. They couldn't get a hold of him, and they had no way to verify that I actually needed this drug. So they sent me home with no prescription. And at this point in the day, I was so defeated. I didn't want to go to the hospital. I just wanted to try to sleep. Somehow I ended up being able to sleep. And the next morning, I get a call from the pharmacist who told me, sorry, there was a miscommunication. The intern that was talking to you should have told you. The reason we couldn't fill this fentanyl prescription for you is because it would have killed you. Yes, you heard me correctly. She said it would have killed me. She said that because I am opioid naive, meaning I rarely take opioids and narcotics, because of that, my tolerance would have been so low that the dosage that my doctor wrote the fentanyl for would have caused respiratory failure. Talk about scary. It really was alarming that the pharmacy ethically, or let me rephrase that, the pharmacy legally could have filled that prescription. There was absolutely nothing stopping them from filling it. But ethically and morally, they felt very uncomfortable with giving me such a high dose of such a potent and addictive and potentially dangerous drug, given that I don't ever take those kinds of medications really outside of a hospital setting. So I was shocked, but I thanked her. I thanked her very much. And I called my doctor and I asked to talk to him about this issue, and he dodged my phone calls for weeks. He made a mistake. He should not have ever given me that medication. And thank God that the fates were working in my favor, and I didn't get it filled because I was in so much desperate pain that I would have taken it. And I talked to several medical professionals after the fact, and they said, even if it didn't kill you, you would have ended up in the hospital. You would have overdosed. Your body would not have been able to handle that. And you also, even taking it one time, probably would have been physically addicted had you not, had it not been fatal. So then I'd be in the process of, pretty much being treated like an addict anyway and having to wean off of this drug. So it was very scary. I talked to several people who were shocked when I told them the dose. They said that it was 75 either micrograms or milligrams. I'm not sure how it's written, but whatever it was 75, I think, micrograms. And they said that usually they would start off dosing fentanyl at 10 or 12 micrograms. To put it in perspective, I lost my beloved grandfather, who was like a second dad to me, back in December. And he was on fentanyl because he had terminal lung cancer that was spread, it metastasized throughout his body. He, being a man who is, substantially bigger than me and who was dying and in extreme pain all over his whole body, was on 12 micrograms. And my doctor wrote it for 75. And I'm not blaming my doctor, but that's what's happening, is that I don't know that even doctors who do work with chronic pain patients, I don't know if they always know the proper dosing of these drugs or when to prescribe them versus when to hold back. And so maybe that's something that needs to be done. Maybe the doctors need to do a little bit more homework or, further their studies in the areas of dispensing pain management drugs. 75 micrograms might be fine for some people. That might be fine for someone that takes an opioid or a narcotic every day. It was not fine for me, and it's inexcusable that I was about to get a prescription filled that could have killed me. I mean, it's very scary that could have been a fatal dose. So that's just one example as to what can happen. Things fall through the cracks. Not every doctor knows everything about every drug and every condition. So we as patients have to be very empowered and very aware and very educated and just do your homework. So if you're prescribed something, make sure it's something you want to take and make sure you know the potential ramifications of it. And always weigh the risks versus the benefits. So, make sure that it's going to be worth it for you to try it, whatever it may be. And I say that for people, whether you want to try an herbal supplement or an essential oil or medical marijuana or an opioid, narcotic, chemo, biologics, whatever it is, make sure that for you personally, the benefit is going to outweigh the risk. Make sure it's going to be worth it for you to take it. Make sure your doctor knows what he's doing in prescribing. And if you're not sure they know what, he or she knows what they're doing, then get a second opinion. Talk to another doctor, talk to a pharmacist, talk to whatever, a nurse, anyone in the healthcare field that maybe can offer you some insight, because it's your life and your life is in your hands, not the hands of your doctors. Remember that every final decision is up to you. You don't always have to take something just because it's prescribed to you. So too often people get stuck in this loop of taking these medications that can cause more harm than good, and it gets to the point where they can't get out of that loop on their own. And I don't know. I don't want to speculate. I don't know that that's what happened for Prince. For all I know, he just enjoyed the high he got from these drugs, and maybe he took them for fun and was an addict in that sense. But There also is the very real possibility that he was a patient like us who did suffer chronic pain, who started off using opioids reasonably, rationally, the way that they were intended, and spiraled out of control, maybe to no fault of his own. So it's a really interesting topic, and I don't want to give an exact stat because I don't want to mess this statistic up, but I recently did an interview on this topic for a widely known publication, and I don't think I can say yet what it was, so I won't, and I also don't want to give an exact number, but the reporter that I was talking to had done some research on this and said that, like, say 80%, and don't quote me on that, of doctors actually failed tests that were tests on how to properly prescribe pain medications and pain management drugs, such as opioids, narcotics, etc. 80% failed. Like, that's crazy, and that's who's prescribing our meds. So I don't want to say don't take them. I know as well as any of you that sometimes we need those drugs, but just be careful. Just be careful. Like I said, I've personally seen people whose lives were either destroyed or lost because of opioids, and the majority of them, now that I think about it, started off taking these drugs legally and because they had pain. So all I say is just be careful. And in the whole story with Prince and with anybody else that is taking opioids or who overdoses from opioids, don't judge because you don't know their story. I don't know his story, and I agree that sometimes with celebrities things get sugar-coated or we make excuses for them because they are a celebrity. I don't agree with that, and I don't agree that we ever should make light of an addiction. But at the same time, I like to share every perspective. So I think it is important that we keep in mind that, you know, sometimes people that are overdosing on these drugs are people who are suffering from severe chronic pain, who, you know, they're not doing this to themselves intentionally. They're not addicted by choice, or, you know, no one's ever addicted by choice. But I guess what I mean is they didn't start out doing it recreationally or just to cope with a bad day or what have you. They started out taking them because they were in pain. So I just want to be careful that we, you know, in discussing these things, that we stay mindful of that and stay empathetic to people, regardless of why they're in the situation they're in and why they're using those drugs. You know, there's a lot to be said for just being empathetic and trying not to judge or assume. We never know what someone else is dealing through or dealing with or going through, even if it's a similar situation to ours or they have similar diagnoses to ours. It's never exactly the same. So we just want to stay mindful and respect everyone else's journey, because not everyone's journey is going to look like ours. So now that I have rambled for 20 minutes about Prince, who I honestly was never even a big fan of, and opioids, now that I'm got that out of my system, does anyone have anything they want to talk about, or any questions or comments? I am happy to answer, you know, any questions that you would like me to answer, whether it's, you know, about my personal journey or about life with RA in general. It can be on topic, it can be off topic. You can ask me about my dogs. You can ask me about my books. You can ask me why my hair is looking so funky today. Whatever you want. These chats are here so that we can interact, and I would much rather be interacting with you all and answering questions versus me just babbling for an hour, which, you know, I've done it for 29 minutes now, so what would another 30 minutes be, I guess, but I won't put you all through that. I know there's viewers, like I can see, you're not hiding from me, so if you're watching, please just submit a question or a comment. I will see it and I will answer it immediately. Otherwise, I'm going to have to sign off here soon because I don't want to just sit here and stare blankly at the screen. I guess while I wait for people to chime in, I'll just share something else. So I went to the Beyonce concert last Tuesday. I think it was a week ago today. And something I thought was really nice was that she dedicated the song Survivor to anyone who's survived anything. And she took the time to mention people who are surviving illness. And I thought that was very cool. Little known fact, Beyonce has had a ton of people in her life who were affected by lupus. So I don't know if it's something that she, publicly talks about, but she is very supportive of lupus causes. And I know some people will be like, oh, she should be, using her platform to spread awareness or whatever. I totally get that. But she's not the one that's suffering with it. I might have a little bit of different perspective if she was. And I can totally respect people who are privately donating, and not trying to get publicity out of it. I think that's really cool. So just know that she is a lupus supporter, and that she gave a little shout out at her concert to anyone who is a survivor of any kind of illness. I thought that was nice. I like when... So one of my questions I asked recently on Facebook was like, what are your hobbies and your interests that your illness or your condition have not taken from you? Like, what are things you can still enjoy? One of my things is concerts. I love music. I love going to concerts. It's one of my favorite things. And I love when the singers take the time to address the audience personally. Even if they say the same thing at every show, it's still nice that they put a little bit of thought into their fans. Another show besides Beyonce where the performer was good at this was Taylor Swift. She really took the time to give an inspirational little talk to her fans and kind of talked about how you can overcome anything. And she talked about bullying and being yourself, and it was very inspiring. I like when they take the time to address topics like that. It's very cool to me. I hope, speaking of celebrities too, that Selena Gomez continues to be vocal about her lupus diagnosis. When she first got diagnosed, I did not want to publicly call her out or put pressure on her, because being diagnosed with a life-altering chronic illness is a personal matter, and I don't think everyone should feel like they have to address it publicly. But I'm very pleased that she has in recent months. And I don't know if any of you guys saw it, but I actually contributed to an article in Teen Vogue. The Teen Vogue article was discussing Selena Gomez and why a star like Selena who has lupus might have to go into rehab. So that's an interesting read. If any of you want to check that out, you can just search my name and maybe also search Selena Gomez and Teen Vogue. And if you use those 3 search terms, it'll come up for sure. While I am plugging my writing, I guess I will mention that I have a lot of awesome new research-based articles on healthline.com. That's healthline.com. And we talk about everything from upcoming treatments to... upcoming treatments to new research to alternative treatments and drugs that are in, drug trials that are in different phases and everything like that. So be sure to check out Healthline. And as some of you know, or as most of you know, I've written 3 books. One is called Sick Idiot, one is called Chronically Positive, and one is called To Exist. To Exist is a fiction novel, and Chronically Positive and Sick Idiot are health memoirs. They're talking about my health journey. Actually, I will show you my books. Just take you for a little walk through my house real quick. So I have my books here. I will just show you the covers real quick, which I'm sure you've seen them online, but this is Sick Idiot. Yay. You can get this on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Kindle, Nook, etc. Half-price books. Wherever you buy books, you can probably find it or order it in. So that's Sick Idiot. Brutus is saying hi. Okay, and this one is Chronically Positive. So this is my other health memoir. Chronically Positive is, unlike Sick Idiot, it is not funny. Sick Idiot is a funny health memoir, and Chronically Positive is a little more serious look at life with illness. Ta-da! There's one of my other dogs, Pip, saying hi. Okay. And lastly, To Exist. Yay. This one's kind of my baby. It is not about my health journey, but the lead character, Shelby Weiss, does have a health problem that is life-altering, but at the same time, it may or may not be what saves her life. So it's definitely an interesting little story if you want to check out To Exist. Fun fact, my brother-in-law, Matthew Shuck, is an amazing photographer, and he designed all 3 of my book covers, and I came up with the concept for all 3, and then he designed them. This one, my husband painted, so it's a watercolor front and back. My husband painted that, and then my brother-in-law photographed it, and we turned it into the book cover. I'll just give him a little free plug while we're in my living room. So this picture right here is one of our wedding photos my brother-in-law took. And then that picture is also one that he took. His website, sorry about my dog. That's what happens when you go live. I'll step outside for 1 minute so you can hear me. My brother-in-law's website is mattshuck.com. That's MATTSHUCK.com. So yeah, I think I'm pretty much done for this chat because I haven't had many participants today, which is a total bummer, but it is what it is. I know everyone's busy, and I hope that you guys will maybe, you know, watch it later. These stay on my page, so you don't necessarily have to be watching live. So thank you for those who have tuned in live, and if anyone else has a question, now's your time to ask, because otherwise I am signing off for the day, and gonna try to enjoy some of this sunshine that has graced us with its presence. It was storming earlier, so I kind of want to get out there and enjoy the sun. Okay, well, thank you, Michael, at least for contributing a comment. Sorry we didn't have any other questions this time, and I will see you guys again next week. Bye, stay well.